The bye week is for self-scouting, so let me tell you how to beat the Bills today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate you all being here very, very much. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Well, folks, welcome in. One of the things I love to do every year during the bye is the Bills versus Bills episode. And the idea here is to replicate what I normally do for a Bills opponent. When the Bills are going to play whatever team, I do an episode where I really detail that football team and I give you my keys for the Bills against that team. Well, today we are going to act as if the Bills are playing the Bills. So I'm going to break down the Bills just like I would an opponent of the Bills. So let's do it. Let's have some fun here to continue this bye week before we get into this matchup against the Carolina Panthers. So this hypothetical game, the Bills enter it 4-2. They're in second place in the AFC East. And if the season ended today, they would be the number 5 seed in the AFC playoffs. Their 4 wins come against the Ravens, Jets, Dolphins, and Saints. Their 2 losses, back-to-back losses to the Patriots and the Falcons. The head coach of the Buffalo Bills is Sean McDermott. He's 51 years old. It's his 9th season as the head coach of the Bills and as an NFL head coach. He boasts a record of 90-47. The Bills have won 5 consecutive AFC East titles, and they've also logged 5 consecutive 11-plus win seasons. They've been to the playoffs in 7 of McDermott's first 8 years in Buffalo, and McDermott has a 7-7 playoff record. They've actually had some playoff success. They've won at least one playoff game in each of the last 5 seasons entering this year, and the Chiefs are the only team, and Andy Reid is the only coach that can say they've done that. It's been an impressive run for Sean McDermott in Buffalo, but they're missing a Super Bowl appearance, and obviously with a quarterback like Josh Allen, expectations are for that to happen. So let's talk about that quarterback, Josh Allen, the reigning NFL MVP. He's 29 years old, 6'5", 240 pounds, was a first-round pick in 2018 out of Wyoming, number 7 overall by the Bills. He has started 116 games to this point, and the Bills have an 80-36 record in those contests. So far in 2025, he's completing 68.5% of his passes, 233 passing yards per game, 11 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a passer rating of 103.1. Let's dive into his advanced metrics so far this year through the Bills' first 6 games. Allen is generating plus 0.18 EPA per dropback. That's 9th best in the NFL. He throws deep, 12.4% of his throws. That's 11th in the NFL. That's actually increased over the last 3 weeks. Over Allen's last 3 games, he's thrown deep on 16.5% of his dropbacks. That's the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. The results have been poor. He's completed just 4 of 13 deep passes for 108 yards with 2 interceptions over the last 3 games. That's a passer rating of 22.8, and only 38.5% of those throws were catchable. So there was some chatter early in the season about Josh Allen not working the deep ball as much. Well, that's happened over the last 3 weeks, and the results have been very poor. Yards after catch, that happens on 49% of Josh Allen's passing yards. That's middle of the pack, 16th. That was a much higher number last year. It's about 10% lower, actually. He throws to his first read 63% of the time. That's 27th. His average time to throw is 2.75 seconds. That's 27th. His catchable ball rate is 76%. That is 12th in the NFL. Turnover-worthy throw rate is up at about 3.4%. That's 25th in the NFL. Drops, that's 5.1%. That's 20th in the NFL. He's facing pressure on 40% of his dropbacks. That's 12th highest in the NFL. Play action is 27.5% of the time. That's 11th. And they run screens 10.6% of the time, which is 13th. So obviously Josh Allen, the reigning NFL MVP, one heck of a football player, presents a lot of challenges with not only his size and physicality and what he can do as a runner, but, as a thrower, he does have access to the entire field. He's good outside of structure. He's good inside of structure. And obviously he's a big challenge for this defense. All right, in just a moment, we're going to talk more about this Bills offense and the weapons and the keys to beating it. But before we get there, I would like to remind you that I am going to be part of a day before kickoff event for the Bills and Panthers game in Charlotte. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and a lot of people have been asking, hey, is there going to be any events that you'll be part of? The answer to that is yes, absolutely. The day before, October 25th, starting at 1 o'clock, I'm going to be at the Waxhaw Tap House for a day before takeover event. There's a lot of Bills fans in the Charlotte area. There's a lot of Bills Mafia traveling in for this game. I'd love for you to make this part of your weekend at the Waxhaw Tap House. Again, at 1 o'clock, October 25th. There will be food, games, entertainment, giveaways. It's an awesome venue. It will be age appropriate. So if you want to bring your kids, I'm bringing my 5-year-old Rebecca. So if you have kids, feel free to bring them. I'd love to meet you. We're just going to hang out. Lots of great stuff at the venue. We'll do a live Q&A. There'll be games. There'll be a lot of fun. So would love for you to be part of it. Again, 1 o'clock, October 25th, the Waxhaw Tap House. If you're looking for more details, just go to thejoemarino.com. And we do kindly ask that you RSVP. It's very easy to do on the website, but the bottom line here is we don't know how many people are going to come. And so as a courtesy to the venue, if you are planning to come, just go and RSVP. That way we know how much staff to have on hand for the event. Again, thejoemarino.com. You can type that right into your browser or in today's show notes. There is a link that you can go visit, see more details, and RSVP. But we would love to see you there. We'd love to hang out and spend some time with Bills Mafia on the day before Bills Panthers here in Charlotte. All right, we'll talk about Joe Brady, the Bills' weapons, their offensive line, and keys to beating them here on the other side of it. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's SAD. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software created. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use and gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one or just fill in the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing touchdowns, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make a lineup in under a minute, and the new injury reboot feature is awesome. If your player leaves early and doesn't return, it's not going to count against you. There's also a special max discount promotion live on the board right now for the Golden State Warriors versus Los Angeles Lakers game on October 21st. Steph Curry is discounted to only needing more than a half point to win. You can mix and match players from football, basketball, and baseball to build your dream lineup today. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, folks, the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills is Joe Brady, who is 36 years old. He was Josh Allen's quarterback's coach, and then they fired Ken Dorsey about halfway through 2023. He became the interim offensive coordinator midway through 2023, was the permanent guy in 2024, and so I guess this is like his second full season, but second and a half season on the job, if you will. He came up under Sean Payton in 2017 and 2018 as an offensive assistant with the Saints. Then in 2019, he was the passing game coordinator for LSU when they had Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and have that unbelievable 2019 LSU team. And then he very quickly became an NFL offensive coordinator with the Carolina Panthers, where he held that job for 2020. And then a few games into 2021, he was let go as kind of the fall guy under the failed start to the Matt Rule era with the Carolina Panthers. And then in 2022, he became the Bills quarterback's coach. And 2023, he's, was the quarterback's coach and then eventually the offensive coordinator. And here he is today. He's had head coaching interviews. He pulled himself out of the Saints search last year. And so that's who orchestrates this offense in Buffalo. So far this year, they're scoring 27.8 points per game. That's fourth in the NFL. They pass the ball only 51% of the time. That's 30th in terms of pass rate. That means they run it a ton. 49% of plays are runs. That's third highest in the NFL. They're sixth in EPA per play on offense. They're 10th in EPA per pass. They're third in EPA per rush. They convert 41% of their third downs. That's 14th in the NFL. 64% of the time they score a touchdown in the red zone. That's 13th in the NFL. So those are a couple metrics there in third down and red zone that are typically a lot higher for the Bills. Let's talk about their personnel at wide receiver. They believe in this everybody eats mentality. So you're not going to find a number one receiver, but they spread the ball out to a bunch of different guys. Their leading receivers are Keon Coleman, second round pick from 2024 out of Florida State, Khalil Shakir, and Joshua Palmer. You feel like that's their top three at the receiver position. Khalil Shakir primarily in the slot, very good yards after catch player. And then Josh Palmer is definitely their best route runner, but it's his first season in Buffalo, so I still think they're trying to kind of figure out his role. Keon Coleman is their bigger-bodied guy that they will throw the ball up to on 50-50 balls. They'll ask him to gain some leverage on some in-cuts, but kind of an inefficient player, although from time to time he can haul in a highlight reel catch. The other receivers are Tyrell Shavers, who's been a practice squad guy that's gotten some run here lately, and then Elijah Moore and Curtis Samuel. Elijah Moore has been a healthy scratch at times this year. Same with Curtis Samuel. It feels like they want Curtis Samuel to have a bit of a role, and whenever he's healthy, he can kind of do some things, but he's been in and out of the lineup a ton. At tight end, Dalton Kincaid, it's his third year, and boy, he's really coming along for this offense. A first-round pick a few years ago. Started his career quite well as a rookie, and then all the expectations were there last year for him to become a high-volume piece of the offense with Stephon Diggs gone, and things were pretty spotty there. He played through some injuries, and him and Josh Allen didn't have the best chemistry, but so far this year, he's been one of the most dynamic playmaking tight ends in the NFL. Dawson Knox, still part of the mix here, more of an inline player, and he plays more than Kincaid, but he doesn't really take anything away from Kincaid. What the Bills do with Knox is they play him in line, which frees up Kincaid to be used in his optimal roles. And so the Bills are going to play a lot of, 2-3 tight end formations, and Dawson Knox's presence frees up Dalton Kincaid to be optimized in the types of roles that are more conducive for him, which is pass catching and more of a space blocker as opposed to an inline player. They also have this good-looking rookie, Jackson Hawes, out of Georgia Tech. They got him on day 3 and has quickly become one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL. You don't have to fear him as a receiver, but he can hold his head above water, so it's not just that he's going to come in and block. He's caught a few passes this year, and they'll get him out into space, and you can't just forget about him because he has some ability in the passing game. At running back, they got one of the best in the league, and James Cook has really become a focal point for this offense over the last few seasons. Got a nice contract extension, and his involvement is higher than ever. Ray Davis, fourth-round pick that they selected in 2024, has been quiet so far this year, had a decent rookie season, but he can provide some change of pace as a physical downhill player. And then Ty Johnson is their third down back. They trust him most in pass protection, has some speed to the perimeter, can catch a football a little bit, but, obviously this running back room is really about James Cook. So when it comes to carry distribution this year, so far James Cook has 107 carries through 6 games. Then it's Josh Allen with 46, and then Ray Davis has 13, and Ty Johnson has 11. So this is very much James Cook. You got to account for Josh Allen as a scrambler, and then you might get a couple of carries per game out of Ray Davis and Ty Johnson. When it comes to target distribution, Keon Coleman has the most targets at 35. Then Khalil Shakir has 34. Dalton Kincaid has 24, but he did miss one game, or I suppose he'd probably be closer to 30. Joshua Palmer has 20. James Cook, 13. You kind of expect that number to be a little higher. Dawson Knox with 12, and then Tyrell Shavers with 10. So Coleman, Shakir, Kincaid, Palmer is really their top 4, and then they'll sprinkle in those other guys. This offensive line is a pretty good one. Their left tackle, Deion Dawkins, one of the best left tackles in the NFL. They have a sufficient level starter at left guard in David Edwards. They have a pretty good center in Connor McGovern, who made the switch from left guard to center last year. That's gone pretty well. The right guard is Osiris Torrance, a pretty up-and-down player, physical run blocker, but he can get twisted up in pass protection a good bit. And then at right tackle, Spencer Brown, who has emerged as one of the best right tackles in the NFL. So really good tackles, pretty good center, solid left guard, and an up-and-down right guard. So what are my keys against this Bills offense? Number one, you got to be ready to defend the run. This team has Josh Allen, and we certainly know what he's capable of, but make no mistake about it, this is a run-first team under Joe Brady. Ever since he became the offensive coordinator, their pass and run rates have been very different, and they've been one of the most run-aggressive teams, kind of top 5 in run frequency. And so you got to be ready for that, and they really excel at the cutback runs. James Cook is a slashing style runner, and he's got really good vision, and he feels cutback opportunities quite a bit. And so I think one of the keys against this Bills offense is our corners have to be part of our run defense equation. If you're a backside corner, that's not a play off for you. You got to squeeze down and put yourself in position to take care of some of those cutback opportunities. We have to be very good on the backside of runs against this Bills team. And so if you're a weak side backer, you can't over pursue. If you're a backside D tackle or DN, you got to play with good discipline down the line of scrimmage to continue moving with your gap, because James Cook can obviously get into those cutback opportunities. So got to be ready to defend the run. They're going to run it a ton, and our backside equation is a big part of this. Our corners inserting in the run fit is going to be a big part of this as well. So number 2 is going to be simulated pressures on defense. You want to be able to stress this Bills pass protection with scheme and overloads, and simulated pressures is probably the best way to do that. Simulated pressure is when you rush 4, but it might not be the 4 players that the offense is expecting to be. So you might put 6 guys on the line of scrimmage, and 2 are going to peel off into coverage and 4 are going to rush. I think you want to confuse them as much as you can. And the guy to really go after is Osiris Torrance. He's the guy that, whether it's a one-on-one where you can win with athleticism and crossing his face, or you put him in some conflict where it stresses his communication and his ability to, during the snap, make adjustments. I think that's where you've seen most of their protection breakdowns happen over the last couple of years. So that's the guy, if you want to create some confusion, you want to go at that right guard. And then the real benefit as well with these sim pressures in terms of you can stress their protection schemes, but also we want to have attention on Josh Allen. And part of our rush plan is going to make sure that we have a mirror player on Allen. And so we're going to disguise where that player is going to be. And so, we will put 5-6 bodies on the line of scrimmage and peel a couple off. And one of them is going to be dedicated to mirroring over top of Josh Allen. I want to stop short of calling it a spy player because there will be, we want him to trigger. We want him to flow and contain Josh Allen. But we also want, just kind of that presence in front of him that's going to take away some throws in front of his face. They love to go to mesh stuff. They like to use sit routes over the ball. So not only do we have a player that can help contain Josh Allen and the dual threat nature that he offers, but you can kind of muddy up some areas of the field where they like to go with the football. So simulated pressures, and then you can kind of do a lot of different things off of that to make things more difficult on that quarterback. And then number 3 is part of my rush plan would be to send pressure away from the formational strength. The Bills like to overload. They might put 4 strong to one side, 3 strong to one side, and I would not be shy from sending pressure away from the formational strength. Backside corner blitzes, backside slot blitzes, send 4 over 3 to the backside in their rush, in our rush plan, and I think we can create some chaos and really make things uncomfortable for Josh Allen. So got to be ready to defend the run. We got to run our simulated pressures and all the things that we can bake into that, and then we want to pressure away from the formational strength and create some chaos for their protection schemes. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about the defense, what they have, and the keys for taking advantage of some of those weaknesses. So folks, be sure to stick with me. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride. With more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else, from footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth sailing to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard and every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. The NFL season is here, folks, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put $5 down, and if it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, I've tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It just makes watching football so much more exciting when you have a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. The defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills is Bobby Babich. I know Sean McDermott is the defensive-minded head coach. Bobby Babich is the defensive coordinator and the play caller. He's 42 years old. It's his second year on the job. He's a Sean McDermott disciple. Prior to becoming the defensive coordinator last year, he had 9 seasons as a defensive assistant under McDermott in various roles. 2 of those seasons with the Carolina Panthers, 7 in Buffalo. And ultimately, he becomes the defensive coordinator. He's coached linebackers, safeties. He's done all kinds of different things. And now he has the opportunity to run this defense. So far in 2025, they're allowing 22.8 points per game. That is 16th in the NFL. They're 16th in defensive EPA per play, 10th per pass, 25th per run. They allow a conversion on 41% of third downs. That's 21st in the NFL. They allow a touchdown on 56% of trips to the red zone. That's 11th in the NFL. They're in base defense, which means 3 linebackers 24% of the time. That's actually 14th in the NFL. This Bills defense in previous years was very reluctant to run base defense, usually below 3%. Now they're at 24%, and they're kind of a middle-of-the-pack base defense team. They run nickel 64% of the time. That is 17th. Traditionally, the Bills have been top 3 in nickel rate. Now they're, I guess slightly below average at 17th. And then they run dime a decent amount, which is 6 defensive backs. They do that 12% of the time, which is the 10th highest rate of dime defense. So they get to dime in some different ways. Sometimes it'll be still with 2 linebackers, and they'll have a 3-man front with their D-line. Sometimes it'll be a 4-man D-line. They'll go 1 backer. But they'll get to 6 defensive backs in a couple of different ways. They like to run a lot of their spy packages out of their dime looks. They run man coverage at the 18th highest rate in the NFL, zone 15th. So you're going to see a mix of man and zone. They blitz 25% of the time, which is 19th in blitz frequency. Cover 2 and cover 3 account for 60% of their coverage shells. Let's talk about the personnel at defensive end. Greg Rousseau, Joey Bosa are your starters here. Bosa, free agent signee, obviously a really good player. The story with him is injuries. So far this year, he's been healthy and played well. Greg Rousseau is his running mate, a first-round pick several years ago, has become one of the best run-defending defensive ends in the NFL, and a good pressure player, has length. He's not quite a sack artist, but a really solid defensive end. And then they have Michael Hoyt. It's his first game off of suspension. He obviously brings a lot of athleticism and versatility to this defense. And then A.J. Epinesa, who's been a good starter/depth player for a number of years in Buffalo. Not a high-impact player, but it's a guy that can fill out your defensive end rotation. He does a solid job. At defensive tackle, Ed Oliver is the main attraction here. 3-technique, top 10 pick a few years ago. Very disruptive player, very athletic. He's not the biggest defensive tackle, but he wins with quickness and can be very disruptive, and certainly has his games where he really stands out. Daquan Jones is his running mate. Has been a solid one tech for them for a number of years. No, he's not Vince Wilfork or one of those big-bodied, space eaters, but he's got some movement skills, and he complements Ed Oliver pretty well. Then, in terms of their depth, Larry Ogunjobi, just like Michael Hoyt, it's his first game off of suspension, but he adds a veteran to this mix. And then Deion Walker, their 4th-round pick out of Kentucky, has really emerged as a rookie to give them some big-time playmaking at the defensive tackle position. Not perfect all the time. You'll still get rooted out of gaps, but you've seen really good in-season growth, and he certainly made a lot of splash plays for this defense. At linebacker, Terrell Bernard is their Mike linebacker. Not having his best season. He's a guy that's known for his coverage ability and his ability to kind of just drop into space and feel things behind him and break on the football. He's traditionally been a pretty good coverage player. Not the best downhill backer. He's smaller, but also he doesn't have the type of mass and functional strength to really take on blocks and remain firm. So you'll see him kind of pick a side when he's going downhill, and sometimes that leads to some issues with fitting the run. But he can process quickly and trigger, and he'll have those moments where he'll shoot a gap and make a play. But there's some variance to Terrell Bernard. Matt Milano is his running mate, and Milano obviously at one point was one of the best playmaking linebackers in the NFL. The last several years had just been plagued with injuries, and hasn't quite been that same type of guy. They've gotten some good depth contributions out of Shaq Thompson, a veteran in the league who's been a good starter, but he's had his own injuries over the last few years. And then Dorian Williams is a young player that they drafted who's fast and physical, but can certainly make his share of processing blunders. So we'll see how they play their Packers. I think they want it to be Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano, but you never know when it comes to availability. At corner, Christian Benford, the last couple of years has been one of the best corners in the NFL. He's certainly not having his best season. I think as the Bills have had issues with their defense, that is a 111th defense, right? Everyone has to do their job. As there's been instability around him pretty much everywhere, I think that's taken away from Christian Benford, who's a really, by-the-book type player. And, he's certainly given up more production this year than he did in the last 2 years combined. His running mate is Tre'Davious White, who is obviously back in Buffalo. Another one of those guys that just battled injuries the last few years and is not quite the same player. He's a get-by player for them. I don't think they want him to start. They signed him, and then they drafted Maxwell Harrison in the first round, and he's been hurt. And they've tried to, work in other guys, whether that's Dorian Strong, who's now hurt. They worked in Jamarcus Ingram a little bit last week, and that didn't go well. So Trey White is very much a get-right player, or get-by player, if you will. And he's obviously costing this defense, and they'd love to upgrade that. They have Taron Johnson in the slot, who's been one of the better slot players in the NFL. Kind of been a little bit more up and down this season, made a lot of splash plays last year, but you kind of felt some inconsistency as well. So we're kind of wanting Taron Johnson to show us that he's still one of the best slot corners in the league. And then the safeties have been an absolute mess. Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop. Taylor Rapp, another player on this defense, is just not playing to the same standard that he's shown in previous years. Has traditionally been a very good tackling safety. That's just not been the case this year. And the coverage has just been very, very much a challenge for him. He's drifting and giving up a lot of production. Then his running mate is Cole Bishop, a second-year player out of Utah, who's up and down, right? You see flashes of, playmaking ability, a big-time interception earlier this year, has had some fast physical tackles, a blitz for a sack, but you also see, the young player in him quite a bit with some angles and some of his decision and processing. So a lot of players on this defense that are just not playing to the standard that they've typically showed us. And so you never know when it's going to come together, but right now it's definitely a unit that's not playing cohesively and a lot of guys that are not playing to their standard. So what are my keys against this Bills defense is, number one, you got to run the ball at this defense. They struggle. I mean, they're giving up almost 6 yards per carry, 5.8 yards per carry so far this year. 10% of runs go for 15 yards or more against this defense. They've given up the third most amount of missed tackles per attempt so far this year. They've given up the second most yards after contact so far this year. They've given up the second most yards before contact this year. You got to run the ball. You got to run the ball against this team until they prove they can stop it. And, I think even to the point where you can't be afraid to run the ball on 2nd and 10. If you get stuffed on first down or you throw incomplete on first down, don't be afraid of a second down run, because not only could that potentially go for a first down, but it's probably going to get you into third and manageable. So don't be afraid to run the ball pretty much in any situation until they prove that they can stop it. And, this is not a defense that is very good at playing downhill and taking on contact. So be physical with them. See if you can crease them. A lot of teams have, and a lot of teams have been able to rip off some explosive runs. Number two is you got to attack Tre'Davious White in coverage. Like I said, he's a get-by player, not a preferred answer for this defense. And if he has limitations, and to his credit, I think he plays to mitigate his limitations, by staying leveraged over top and putting himself in position to not give up big plays. But the problem is he gives up a ton of short plays. So, you got to be able to win that matchup one-on-one with your second best receiver. And then number three is you have to attack the space between linebackers and safeties. This team likes to spot drop and they just drift and they're not very connected. And so you can find a lot of space to work the football between linebackers and safeties. So get your zone busters going and read it out, and somebody will be open, because they're not playing very connected on the back end and there's a lot of space to take advantage of. Real quick on special teams, our kicker is Matt Prater. Tyler Bass has been their kicker. He's been dealing with some type of pelvic issue, and Matt Prater was signed just before the season to the practice squad. Now he's on the active roster. He's 41 years old. He's doing a nice job. So far, he's 10 of 11 on field goals. He's been 17 of 17 on extra points. 84% kicker for his career. He's been a guy that's known to have some really big, consistent seasons, and looks like he's having one of those right now at age 41. Their punter is Mitch Wishnowsky. It's their third punter so far this year. Wishnowsky's 33. He had a long run with the San Francisco 49ers and has recently taken over as their punter. He's probably a league average punter. The returner, that's a question mark. I think it's Brandon Codrington. That's a guy they traded for last year, had a pretty good rookie season handling their punt and kick return duties. Then in the playoffs last year, they make him inactive, and then he's been a healthy scratch a few times this year as well. He's probably their best returner, but he doesn't really offer much roster value outside of that. So you've seen them incorporate Curtis Samuel in the kick return game, sometimes Ty Johnson. In terms of punt return, if it's not Codrington, it's typically been Khalil Shakir who can go back and handle those duties. So there's the Buffalo Bills. Obviously a team that's been very successful in recent years. They have an unbelievable player, potentially the best player in the league in Josh Allen at quarterback. But obviously some things on this team are not quite firing on all cylinders. And you wonder, is this team going to wake up and become dominant and show us that they're a dangerous team? Or is this a team that, has some questionable schemes, maybe lacks the top end talent of a true contender outside of Josh Allen? And so I think we're going to find out a lot about this Bills team down the stretch. And so we'll see if they wake up, or we'll see if they kind of stay sleepy and average. And if they ultimately just don't have enough, whether that's scheme or talent, to capitalize on Josh Allen as their quarterback this year. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. I hope you enjoyed that, right? Just kind of really honest, like, hey, if the Bills were playing the Bills, what would I say? That's what I'd say. If the Bills are playing the Bills, that would be the Friday episode. So hope you enjoyed that. We got more bye week stuff to do. Eventually, we'll start talking about the Panthers. Of course, we'll get to crossover Thursday, the primer, all those types of things. But want to work in a herd mentality episode. I have a lot of stuff lined up for that, and maybe get into some other ideas about, kind of this team moving forward. So be dialed in. We got Bill Squad twice this week, Monday and probably Thursday. But make sure that you're subscribed on the YouTube channel. That way you get a notification whenever we go live there. All right, folks, that's it for today. Thanks for being here. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.